What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Day1Radio right here on Live Hip Hop Daily. As usual, I'm Maurice Garland, and I'm always joined by my partner in crime, Brandon Peters. What's going on with you, man?
What's happening, bro? Happy to be in the building, man. We're almost up to the holiday. I'm happy not to have to be on a million Zoom calls every day. It's always a good time of year, for sure. And you know, we've been at this, man, 7 years, and we've had a lot of our contemporaries on, from Jerry to Day1, Elliot Wilson, a lot of the homies and whatnot. And it's crazy. Like, this brother, I don't think up until I hit him up on Facebook Messenger, we had ever talked before. But we know a million of the same people, as you do as well, Maurice. And I've read his stuff, over the years, and Vibe to Blaze, the AP stuff, the whole nine, man. But most recently, this brother Jesse Washington is who I'm speaking of, had the pleasure of writing a book that I think most sports fans always wanted, but we never knew if it was going to happen or not, which is I Came as a Shadow, the late, great Coach John Thompson's book, man. So it's a pleasure to have him on the podcast. We always like having, fellow journalists on. Well, he's a full-time journalist still. Neither one of us are full-time journalists anymore, but we still, do our thing, man. So Jesse, welcome to the show, brother.
Man, great to be here. Appreciate y'all.
I Came as a Shadow. It's funny. I'm a long-time listener to Tony Kornheiser. So he always, talks about Coach on the show. And when he passed, I was up. The news came out, I think 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time is when it started trickling out. I was up and I just started listening to, the different DC area radio shows, and Kornheiser was on there, and he talked about how Coach Thompson hit him up and was like, I want a brother to write my book, but it can't be Wilbon. So, how, especially a guy who is from New York, how did it end up getting to you? I know your affiliation with the Undefeated and everything, but I just knew it was going to be a DC guy, but it ended up being a New York guy. So how did this all come together?
Right. Well, first off, if I have to take a backseat to Wilbon, I'm cool with that. I could be Robin to his Batman. I don't mind, because, he's one of the trailblazing brothers in this business. So I just appreciate being in the same sentence as Wilbon.
Yeah.
I think that my work, Coach Thompson had some people who were looking for a writer for him. And they asked the guy who was then the president of ESPN, John Skipper, who helped start the Undefeated. And they said, do you know anybody who will be good? And Skipper put my name forward. Now, how many other names he put forward in that group? At what number was I? Was I number 1? Was I number 31? I don't know. But I got a chance to meet with Coach Thompson, and I came ready. I had my game face on, and I survived the first meeting. He grilled me a little bit, but I think he liked what I saw and what he saw. And also, man, Coach Thompson liked the underdog. He liked underdogs, man. He liked to go with that dude who might not be the big celebrity. For example, Coach Thompson, in his book, McDonald's All-American recruits, he called them hamburger heroes, So I was not a hamburger hero. I was a diamond in the rough that he found, and I'm glad he did.
I'm sure it didn't hurt that you were a hooper.
It didn't hurt at all. And, Coach Thompson knows everything that happens in the DMV. And so as it turned out, I play in a regular pickup game in the district when I'm down there for business at his son John's alma mater, Gonzaga. And so we're sitting there in the first meeting with Coach Thompson, and his son John is there and his daughter Tiffany. And his son John goes, so how's your hoop game these days? And I know he already knew the answer. I know he had already checked with the people who I've been playing against. So I just said, it's all right. And we kept it moving. But several times during the course of writing the book, he said, well, Jesse, I know you understand because you played. And part of it. But he reminded, you know, that a big part of the reason I chose you is because you're Black, right? And I was like, that's right, coach, and I'm happy with that. So that's how it went down.
Jesse, run that back real quick. It got you slowed down and then sped up and froze. So just run that back like to the
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
From what part?
When you were saying, you know, when you was talking about, you know, he knew that you hooped.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, Coach Thompson did know I was a hooper. And as a matter of fact, there's a regular pickup game that I play in at the alma mater of his son, John, at Gonzaga High School. And so when I met with Coach and his son, then halfway through the meeting, his son looked at me and said, so how's your hoop game these days? And I knew that young John already knew. I knew he had talked to people who I played against. And so I just said, it's all right. And then we kept it rolling from there. But Coach definitely appreciated that I was a hooper, because sometimes when we were writing the book, he would say, well, Jesse, you understand because you played. And we would keep it moving from there. So that resonated with him. And then finally, he, on more than one occasion, said, you know that a big reason I chose you is because you're Black, right? I was like, cool, Coach. Yes, I am. And I'm glad you did. Let's rock.
So you said that, you know, Coach was grilling you. Like, what does a grilling from Coach, you know what I'm saying, feel like? Because, you know, we've seen him getting some ass on the sidelines, you know what I'm saying? But it's like what does a grilling from Coach like feel like? What were some of the things he was saying or doing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it wasn't to that point. So, you know, I didn't get cursed out like I had turned the ball over against Syracuse or something. But he asked very pointed questions. And Coach Thompson also has a look, a penetrating gaze that he would give you. And so during that first meeting, he asked me a lot of tough questions. For example, he said, well, you've never written a book before. Why can you do this one? You know, I had an answer to that. And he also said, one of the interesting things was, you know, I was wearing what I usually do for work, you know, polo shirt, some pants, nothing too dressy, no ties, no jackets. And he said, why did you dress like that to come here today? He didn't say it was bad. He didn't say it was good. He just said, why'd you dress that way? And so these were the type of questions. For me, that's what a grilling felt like. He wanted to find out what type of person I was, my thought process. And that's how he went about his life in general. And as we continued to write the book and the things he said in the book explained, well, I had to ask some questions to figure out what this was all about. That was his thought process and his way of doing things, which definitely comes across in his book.
Exactly, man. And it's interesting you say that, because when you hear journalists who are now established, who were young when Coach first started at Georgetown, or when they first started in the business, everyone has a story, if he likes you, about him being tough on you from day one. That's amazing. So there's a lot of wisdom in the book, and I'm sure you guys had a lot of amazing conversations. Is there one, because he spoke not like really in parables, but like he always had those sayings, the stuff that'll stick out. You know what I mean? Kind of like a jazz musician or an MC. He'll say a lot, and then let me hit you with this one to take with you. What's one of the ones you took with you that still sticks in your mind?
Man, okay, a couple of them. More money is made sitting down than standing up. So that was his way of communicating to his players. Yeah, run around and jump, shoot these jump shots and dunks all you want. But the real money is made outside of that, in business, the people who own the team. So what are you going to do with your life beyond basketball? That was one of my favorites. Another one that he said was, the man who gets up at dawn and starts walking will always beat the man who gets up at noon and starts running. I really dug that, man. Like, be about your business, put the work in, be consistent, be early. He did remark that if he told Patrick Ewing to show up at 8, Patrick would always show up at 7:45. So you could see how his advice would sink into some of these great players and help make them great. Those were two. There's just so many. Here's the final one that I will give, and this one is really characteristic of how Coach would think on multiple levels at once. He said, there's nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals. Then he said, in other words, if we're running a race and you start at the 50-yard line and I start back at the 0, and you judge us as who finishes first in a 100-yard race, that's the equal treatment of unequals. And so these were some of the sayings that he had that will really make you think and reflect, and you can use in daily life to this day.
Absolutely.
So with this book, like, was this a situation where, you know, of course you said you came ready, you came with your game face on, but as far as he was concerned, because, you know, I mean, you know, he saying what he said, you ain't wrote a book before. It's like, he never wrote a book with you before, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, what did he have his game face on? Like, did he seem ready to be like, hey, I'm ready to sit down and tell all these stories in this way, or even, you know, reveal some things that he might have not talked about before? Like how was he, you know, at the beginning of the process?
He was very engaged and eager to get to work. And he would call me up, my phone would ring, and he would say, okay, what are we doing this week? You know, which meant get your butt down here to DC so we can get to work. But more so than stories that he wanted to tell, because he said off the rip, this isn't a book about basketball, about how I designed the full court press, about how I won this game or against Syracuse or St. John's. He had points he wanted to make. He had messages that he wanted to deliver, and he wanted to use the experiences of his life to convey those messages, to convey that more money is made sitting down than standing up. And so he would expound on these topics and philosophies of his. And then he really relied on me and wanted me to follow up with questions that will be able to fill out the book. And so we developed a rhythm of working that way. And I would put in a lot of research before I sat down with him about the things that were important to him and try to come up with details to jog his memory. I would interview his players about things he said to them and go back and say, Coach, okay, so Michael Jackson said X, Y, Z. What do you think about that? And then he would expound on that. So more so, he had a message, a variety of messages that he wanted readers to take away, that us as Black people, we don't have to always be successful through athletics. We can succeed, we can conquer this world with our mind. That was one of his big messages, and he would keep coming back to it in different ways and different anecdotes. So generally, that's how he approached the book. He was very engaged. He was eager to work on it. Every time we sat down, we would spend 2-3 hours at a time talking. And to the end, he cared about every word that was in the book. So when you do read I Came as a Shadow, know for a fact that Coach Thompson had his fingerprints on everything that is in there.
You can tell. I mean, you can definitely tell for sure. I've read like the first 4 or 5 chapters so far, and you can definitely tell like this is him all day. What I did not know was how much he idolized Elgin Baylor. Were you able to speak to Elgin for the book at all?
Elgin was not one of the people we spoke to. I felt like I didn't have to. And a lot of times I wanted it to I didn't want to water it down by getting outside perspectives. And Coach had so much to say about Elgin Baylor, who was known as the Rabbit in DC. And this pretty much sums it up. He said, if you take now DC is a basketball mecca. You could put the best players out of DC up against any city in the country, any metro area in the country. He said, when it comes to the best players out of DC, you could put Elgin Baylor at number 1. You could skip over 2, 3, 4, and 5 and start the rest of them blankety blanks from there, including that boy Kevin Durant. You know, so I mean, that's how much of an impression Elgin Baylor made on him. He also said that his people on the Celtics, when he played for the Celtics, used to laugh at him and see like, oh yeah, there goes your boy Elgin, like kid Coach over his reverence for the great Elgin Baylor. And so then, and they would say, yeah, Elgin can only go right. He only wants to go right. The playoffs came. Elgin came to Boston Garden, gave him 63. And then Coach said, but he could only go right, huh?
Right. For sure. That's wild. I know when the book was first announced, it was said that it was going to come out in 2021. For you, you know, being that you guys are working on, I guess, for a couple years, and then he passed, a few months ago. Was that any like added pressure? Like, this has to be perfect. It has to be really tell Coach's story. Or were you so confident in what you guys had done so far that you knew you guys had hit the mark?
Well, we finished the book before he passed.
Yeah.
We concluded our work together, and he said, "You did a good job, boy." And it was the book he wanted to tell. So it wasn't like I had to go in and touch anything up or change anything. I didn't have to wonder, would Coach have wanted it to be this way or that way? Because he told me how he wanted. And I knew I had a confidence that, hey, if I can deliver Coach what he wants people to know live and direct, then that will be a good book. But most importantly, my goal was to do the book that he wanted to do, to tell the story and deliver the message that he wanted to deliver. And so once we did that, I can live with the results. It's like they say in basketball, right? You put in all the work, you prepare, you train, you do everything you're supposed to do, you take the shot, and then you live with the results. So I can definitely live with the results where I came as a shadow.
So, being in that position, especially being that, you come from a background of journalism. So it's like you got the research part down, but, did you find yourself in situations where you're like, man, Coach acting like he don't want to talk about that part. I'm gonna keep asking him, you know what I'm saying? Or he might try to tell you something from his perspective where you're like, that ain't what the paper was saying, and that ain't what everybody else saying either. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, did you find yourself at those junctions too while talking to him and writing the book?
That wasn't really a problem for me because this was an act of service. I was there to tell Coach's story. This is a man who was, for decades, slandered, mischaracterized, stereotyped, and every other thing you could think of by the media. He deserves a chance to have his say. He deserves a chance to define himself, especially since what was put forth in so much of the media at the height of his success was like a racist caricature. Yeah. It was a lot of white journalists. Not all white journalists did a bad job. He would be quick to point that out. He had deep friendships with a lot of white journalists, and they did a great job. But there were some very influential white journalists who you could read about in the book who just wrote about him in a blatantly racist fashion. And so I wasn't really worried about the paper said it different or this said it different, because this is Coach's chance to tell his story. I'm rocking with you. I was never good enough as a player, not even close to play for Georgetown. When I was writing this book, I felt like I had Georgetown on my chest. And I'm going out there for Coach to rep for him. So there were things he didn't want to talk about. Hey, that's cool. I asked him in our first meeting, how will it be if I ask you questions that you're uncomfortable with? And he said, that's fine. And then he paused, and then he said something effective like, but I don't have to answer them. Right. So he was always in control. He was always in control. And my job sometimes was to try and push him and nudge him this way or that. And he let me know if I went too far. But he cursed out all his players. So that was another way that I knew I was in the fold. I felt like I was part of the team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to take it back, man. You were had to be like junior high school when the Hoyas went to back-to-back NCAA finals. And I feel like I say this, and if you're not of a certain age, I'm 44, people don't understand. Georgetown was Black America's team. There are people who thought Georgetown was a HBCU. It could be further from the truth. Take us back to when you were a youngster, in school, and the whole Hoya paranoia thing, because it didn't matter where you were from. We all rooted for Georgetown.
Man, you definitely got that right. So I'm in the projects. We don't have a TV, but I know the game is going on, so I got to go across the hall and watch at my neighbor's house on the little 12-inch black and white jump. And the feeling that we got from watching this all-black team with the black coach run through these people, and the way they played with aggression, but pride, running up and down. These brothers were on point, sharp, and following instructions. And then in charge of the whole thing was this big, black, articulate, unapologetic black man. And that was a new thing. In the 80s, where else would you see that? We weren't CEOs. We didn't run businesses. You know, you did not see that hardly at all in the media. And this goes back to something in the book that deeply affected John Thompson. He said, I grew up in the Frederick Douglass housing projects, but I never knew who Frederick Douglass was. The only examples we had of Black success were athletes, Elgin Baylor, Joe Louis, et cetera, et cetera. And he wanted to project that image of intelligence, of succeeding with your mind. And it worked on me, even though I was a young man and I didn't really go through all the ways of exactly what I was taking in, but that image soaked into me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this is when hip hop was really just blowing up. Hip hop was not mainstream like it is now. Everybody wasn't listening. Everybody hated hip hop. Everybody hated Georgetown. The reasons why people hated hip hop and were scared of hip hop is the same thing why they were looking at Georgetown sideways. And so Georgetown and hip hop really came together and boosted each other in a real synergistic type of way. There was an energy that came together with that. The swag, the style, the Nike Dunks with the big Hoyas on the heel, the refusal to back down, the being in your face, the outthinking you and outplaying you. It was so hip hop, and it was like rocket fuel to the culture in the early 80s, and really connected with me in a very profound way. So Coach Thompson in his book does not take credit for all of these things with rap, but he was aware of it, and he is proud of the fact that he added some small part to that part of our history.
For sure, for sure. Staying on that intellectual piece, I would like for you to get into the story of his uncle and the impact his uncle had on his life and led to you guys naming the book I Came as a Shadow.
Yes. So hold on a second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Let me just let the youngin' know I'll hit him back.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I can't figure out how to turn off the alerts on my computer when I silence my phone.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody does.
I don't know. I only know how to sign out of it. I don't know how to turn off the alert. I know you got to go into system preferences, but I don't know how to turn off the alerts.
Okay, so the title of the book, which is one of the most profound, now let me start that again. Coach Thompson had an uncle.
May have to get you to start again. You're dragging again.
Louis Grandison Alexander, who was a poet. I see it says unstable. Okay. All right, let's do it again.
Okay.
Coach Thompson had an uncle named Louis Grandison Alexander, who was a poet and a theater professional in the Harlem Renaissance. And his uncle Louis was the first person he ever met who was recognized for using his mind. And it made a very profound impression on Coach. He's not punching people out like Joe Louis. This is what he says in the book. He's not jumping over people like Elgin Baylor. He's writing poetry. He's celebrated for being intellectual. And his uncle had a poem called I Came as a Shadow, which begins, I came as a shadow. I stand now a light. The depth of my darkness transfigures your night. Now, that's just the beginning of the poem. It goes on. And Coach used to recite that sort of out the blue when we first started working together. And then he would keep talking about other things. And finally, I looked it up and then I asked him about it. And I said, wait a minute, Coach, you identify with that poem, don't you? And he said, you're blankety blank right, I do. And Coach's daughter, Tiffany, is the one who came up with the idea to title the book, I Came as a Shadow. So Coach is that shadow who came, and the poem gives you a feeling of, shadow makes you think of something that you're scared of, that's unknown, that's unfamiliar. But by the end of the poem, you really realized the value of the shadow, the light that the shadow has cast upon all of us. So it was one of my favorite parts of working on the book is learning about his uncle Louis Grandison Alexander, poet. And, you know, there's so many surprises in the book. You wouldn't expect Coach John Thompson to be reciting poetry, you know? I mean, he reveals a side of himself that he kept hidden all the years. Like, you know, this is a guy who was known for cussing people out, not saying verses.
Yeah.
You know, all of his deep relationships with white mentors that he had, Dean Smith, Red Auerbach, the way he promoted women and was one of the first people in the NCAA to have a woman on the bench as an assistant coach, to have a woman trainer. The things that he did back then, you know, he was ahead of his time so much in what we're talking about right now. And so these are just some of the things that he talks about in the book that make it really special.
For sure. For sure. No, there are so many things that I had no idea about, even in the beginning, you know, the first 4 or 5 chapters of the book. And I was just like, it's an excellent read. Like, I was reading it last night and I didn't want to put it down. I was like, I got to go to sleep though. It'll be here tomorrow. For sure. So now you guys did an excellent job, man. I wanted to switch gears a little bit, man. You know, both of us, you know, came up in hip hop journalism, written for a bunch of different publications, on staff for a bunch of different publications, man. And the thing that always stands out to me, even though it was a very small moment in history, is Blaze magazine. You either loved it or you hated it. Like, there was no middle ground. No, I loved it too. I loved it too, man. I want you to talk a little bit, like, we're, 32 years?
Man.
Is it 32 years since it launched?
No, not Blaze. Blaze came out
22.
Yeah.
Damn, it's been 22 too? Damn. Yeah, 98. Damn.
22 years. Us being journalists and just hip hop heads, gotta ask you about, you know, your time at Blaze, man.
No doubt, man. Well, one of my fondest memories was, you know, back in the magazine era, and, you know, for the youngsters, a magazine was like a small book. It was rectangular. It was on paper, had pictures in it, and you opened it up and read it like that. And so, you know, to me, the back page was always prime real estate. Like, it was the cover, and then you flip to the back. What's on the back? It was like the ending, you know, it was like that. It was like a punchline. And so I came up with this idea: every issue, we're going to have a battle, and we're going to have MCs battle it out. And it was really like a NCAA tournament bracket that we would have. 16 rappers, 32 rappers. You go head to head, you advance. And so we would stage it in these different cities, and we came to Kaya in the A and had a battle there. And we'd always try and get a marquee performer. And shout to Keith Clinkscales and the rest of these people, you know, making it happen for Blaze, because we had the Dungeon Family performing their new single, Watch for the Hook. I think Killer Mike was on there. It was 3000. It was Big Boy. And just to be on the side of that stage, watching that performance in a spot like that in the A is one of my fondest memories. And, you know, that was what we tried to do. We tried to be innovative and stuff like that. Now, sometimes that got me into trouble. And, you know, I did have some run-ins due to my journalistic tendencies because, you know, like the rap industry is like, it doesn't really operate on journalism principles. And I came in, you know, thinking about, okay, it's the truth and nothing but the truth. But that said, I think that it was a tremendous time in the culture, like taking over mainstream. Like, Jay-Z was not that dude who had conquered the culture. He was just about to kick in the door.
Breaking up again.
You're breaking up.
Culture. Take it back to the
Master P. You know, we had Juvenile on the cover. Okay. All right, I'll take it back real quick. Yeah. So this was a time when hip hop was not part of the mainstream. We were about to conquer the culture. So Jay-Z wasn't Jay-Z. He was just the dude with the Hard Knock Life single that all of a sudden took over pop radio. And so it was a much different time. I just appreciated being a part of it, playing a very small part in propelling our culture forward and putting it, proving to the world its value, its relevance, its timelessness, and its contribution to America as a whole. It was a very special time, worked with a lot of great people. I'm still just grateful to be in the same sentence as the OGs that you mentioned, like Daytwan and Elliot and these guys. And so it was a lot of fun, man. I loved it.
Man, I gotta ask you this though, bro. Like, my favorite part of that magazine was when y'all would allow the artists to reply to the reviews. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I used to love reading it, especially when it was an artist that I listened to, because, you know, being from Atlanta, just being from the South, I remember the time, I think it was a Tear the Club Up Thugs review, and DJ Paul wrote back, he was like, man, stop letting these New York writers review our shit, man. They don't know what they talking about, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, man. You a real head. So check it. When I worked at Vibe before they started Blaze, truth be told, there were not a high percentage of Black editors at Vibe, you know. Now, not that the white people we had working for us were no good, but there just wasn't a lot of brothers. And when the angry rappers would call up over the reviews, I was the managing editor at Vibe, and I would frequently field the call. And half the time I'd be like, yo, bruh has a point. Exactly what you said. Like, a lot of times the reviewer didn't get the music, and they'd be writing about stuff and just taking it all out of context. So when we started Blaze, I'm trying to, you know, it was a crowded marketplace. You have The Source, you have Vibe, you had XXL. How am I going to be different? So I said, all right, if we give someone a bad review, then we'll let the artist reply to the review and print it right next to it. Plus, I felt that was another layer of accountability. So I really enjoyed that, man. And I'm glad you picked up on that. That did lead to some issues, you know, because, you know, people, man, you know, people gonna get their feelings hurt and try to flex on you. Yeah. So that led to some problems, but ultimately I stand by the idea, and I also stand by the idea of a lot of times the critics, you know, this is art we're talking about, and you and I could both listen to the same song or watch the same film or look at the same painting and get two totally different impressions. So I think that the artist deserves a chance to explain their art to the people. And now we really see that happening with social media and everything. I mean, that's how it works. One more Atlanta memory. When Outkast was coming out with the Aquemini album, and we were going to do something ahead of it. So me being the boss, I assigned that to myself. And Andre came to my hotel room. Like, this is how much of a different era was. Like, who am I? Andre came to my hotel room to do the interview, and he had the album artwork with him, like the actual painting on the cover of Aquemini. He said, "Hey, do you like it?" Wow. So, you know, just another memory, man. And now we see Atlanta just adding so much to the culture. I'm glad I got to witness a tiny piece of it.
For sure. And fast forwarding several years, how does it feel to be able to put together your expertise and your loves of sports, hip hop, and entertainment at the Undefeated, kind of merging those blurred lines of culture, sports, and entertainment?
Man, the Undefeated is such a special platform. Shout to all the brilliant and talented people who I work with there, who are too many to mention. But
shout out to the homie Justin. That's the homie. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My man Tinsley, you know, one of the day ones at the Undefeated. And you know, it's funny because I've had a chance to launch several publications, Blaze among them. And then the Undefeated is like a magazine for this new millennium. I mean, it's a digital platform. And so the breadth of what we cover, the amount of talent that Kevin Merida has been able to assemble there, the different viewpoints and philosophies that all combust. I mean, shoot, we had President Barack Obama, man, on Undefeated Air at a HBCU. You know, we've had poets, artists. We've put out a children's book. We've done documentaries. We've put out Music for the Movement, the first Undefeated EP, original music by Ninth Wonder and Rhapsody and Bilal, like remakes of classic songs, you know, like Marvin Gaye and Nina Simone. I mean, I'm just so grateful to be able to combine the things that I'm passionate about and that our culture is passionate about. And I really think that the best is yet to come for the Undefeated. So, you know, 2021, our 5-year anniversary is coming up. We're trying to come even harder.
Wow. Hey, 5 years already? Wow. That's quick.
I want to share one of my favorite moments from the Undefeated. I don't think a lot of people knew about it, but you made a video where a cat on Twitter was talking shit. And you was like, pull up, bro. Like you can say something about how I write, but you ain't about to say something about my hoop game, though. and
Yeah.
y'all met up at a court and you skunked this man. You know what I'm saying? Like for people that haven't seen the video, man, like tell us how that whole thing happened, because I have never seen anything like that before. And I was like, man, this actually needs to happen more often.
You know, man, it goes back to something like with the events that we had for Blaze and the philosophy that Kevin Merida has brought to the Undefeated, which is we're going to do things in real life, man. We're going to be there. You know, we're going to manifest. And so it started when I wrote a James Harden article. You know, James Harden, you know, there might be a bit of floppery involved with his game. I mean, he's tremendous. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate dude. I love to watch him cook. But, you know, he be begging for fouls, man. And like me as a hooper, it sort of rubbed me the wrong way. So I decided to write a column about it. And I called up all my hooper friends. And all my dudes who I hoop with, these are guys who play pro. These might have never played pro, but play pickup all the time. And they were like, man, you come around the way with them calls, B, you might not walk out of here. So I wrote the article and then I put it on social media. And I knew that a lot of people on social media would be like, who are you to question James Harden's game? Like, who are you? You can't hoop. So I know I can't hoop with Harden, but I think I can hoop with y'all. So I'm just having fun on the internet. So everybody who came at me like, yo, you're trash, I was just like, come see me, play me. Okay. Hold on one second. So everybody who tried to come at me on the internet and say I'm trash, I just said, come play me and find out how trash I am. And one dude took the bait.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. I can't figure that out, especially how his game turned out to be. Because driving to the game with my dude, I was a little bit scared. I'm getting on in years. My game ain't what it used to be. I might have got smacked up by this young fella. You know, I'm trying to research him on the internet. Did he play anywhere? Does he have any statistics? Can I see some videos? But, you know, I had to back it up. So I rolled into the gym and he worked on an Army base. And so I came in and, you know, I got a little bit of size on me. I looked the part. And when I walked in, there was a lot of people there. They kind of looked and they were like, ooh, I was like, where's he at? I looked over. I saw him take one jump shot. I saw him dive. And I was like, yo, it's over. It's over. And at that point, I sort of blacked out. You know, I just blacked out and started talking a lot of junk. Probably, you know, not setting a great example for my youngins who play basketball at that moment. But it was just like that hooper took over. And then we went out to the court and it was ugly for the dude. So
it was so ugly. It was so ugly. I was watching the video like, bruh, damn, is he gonna score? Like, oh, like you can't just get drugged. Like,
why did he do? I don't know, because there's probably a lot of guys like, you know, there's probably a lot of guys out there who could at least give me a good game, who could beat me, you know, but I'm gonna give it my best. But this, for the dude with no game to be the one who talked the most,
Zero game. Like, you could tell from the couple shots he got up, I was like, that wasn't even close. At all. It was at one point with the jumper, man, the look on your face was like, oh, damn. Yeah, that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. But it made for an entertaining video. For sure.
Hang on, okay. It was entertaining. And 2021, I'm gonna be back out on the internet trying to find another couple of competitors, maybe give me a better game. Maybe I might even lose, you know, so we'll see. But we coming back to the internet with the Jesse Washington Baldwin of Basketball Hoop Chronicles once we get out from under the Corona.
That'll be dope. Well, appreciate you, brother, man. Please make sure you hit up your local bookstore, barnesandnobles.com, Amazon, wherever you get your books. Please pick up I Came as a Shadow. Excellent read thus far. I can't wait to finish it. I'm sure there's so many more things that I will find out about that I had no idea about Coach Thompson's life, man. Rest in peace to Coach Thompson, man. One of the greats, for real, for real. So let us know, man, where they can find you, man. Where they
absolutely.
Can
Thanks, man. I really enjoyed it. Okay, yeah, man. Well, number one, I really appreciate y'all brothers and what y'all do, what you're doing. Coach Thompson would appreciate this forum. You can find I Came as a Shadow anywhere on the internet where books are sold or in real life. And as for me, man, you can check us out at theundefeated.com, and I'm at Jesse Washington, JESSE Washington. Hashtag I will give you buckets.
For sure, man. Appreciate you, brother. And we appreciate y'all listening through our partners at CLNS Media. We appreciate you watching through Live Hip Hop Daily. Happy holidays. If we don't see you, if you don't check in, we'll be back. Check the archives. Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see y'all next week with another dope show. Peace.